Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of With Love Soleil. What I want to talk about today is generally nervous system regulation, nervous system knowing, the sort of wisdom that we have in our inner being and how that relates to our nervous system, and how we're always kind of guided energetically throughout the day by what our nervous system knows is sort of the highest choice vibrationally as we move about our lives. So this was actually something that was taught to me at a really young age by my mom, who I definitely consider like my spiritual teacher. She was someone who absolutely helped me pave my path in how I see the world and who I've become. So shout out to my mom. She passed in 2016. So it's definitely been a journey for me, a learning, a kind of a second half of her teachings and learning kind of how to navigate life without her. And I'm sure anybody who has lost a parent sort of understands that path and that journey. But one of the things that she really taught me was how to sort of navigate the world intuitively. And she would always say, if you have a big choice to make and you're not sure which path to take, or maybe you have, multiple options, to sit with it, right? To kind of make the choice in your heart and in your nervous system, in your mind, of one way, and sit with it, see how it feels, and, kind of go about your day with like, this is the way I'm going to go. This is the decision I'm going to make. And then the following day to make the opposite choice, to choose something else and feel how that feels, and let that decide for you what's right for you. And, this whole practice is really about sort of trying. It's like trying on a jacket, right? You try on the jacket and you don't know if it's going to fit until you try it on, until you sort of feel how it feels on your body. It's the same kind of conversation here, except that, the nervous system is so connected. It's connected to so much more than the mind itself, because the mind works so kind of linearly and logically and rationally. And it's kind of when you're thinking about your different options, you're kind of going over them in a way that's more logical and practical. But the nervous system is connected to not only sort of our deeper inner being, our deeper inner wisdom, but the whole world, right? Like our nervous system moves on energy. It's tapped in energetically to the kind of highest vibrational movement of humanity and of the world. So it knows more than the mind, so much more than the mind. And so the work then is to kind of get out of our minds when we're making big decisions and trust what we know. This is all about us moving intuitively, but it kind of breaks down even more, almost generally scientifically, to what we know in our nervous system. It's as if the nervous system is kind of programmed to orient us in the direction of our highest lives and our highest selves, and what's going to feel good in our bodies and in our realities. It knows that program. It sort of aligns us to that program. So then when you're, weighing options of things and you weigh them against that program, your nervous system is going to say, this feels like home, right? Like this has that resonance of like, yes. And then it's going to also say that this has the resonance of like, maybe, but, not sure even, or probably not. And over time, as you develop and regulate and sort of master this skill, what happens is that usually if it's not like a very clear yes, I know for me, I mean, in how I move now, it's like, if it's not an absolute like immediate yes for me internally, energetically, then it's kind of a no initially. And that doesn't ever mean I like close things off and I'm 100% out for me, but I move on those like big yeses because I know how that feels. And I don't need things to kind of fill spaces in my life, or, take up unnecessary bandwidth. Like, I just want to align myself with the things that are big yeses for me. So when you are moving in this capacity and when you're sort of regulating your nervous system, you have to kind of train it to stay in the space where you are aligned with your highest self. And what that looks and feels like is just literally feeling good. I think that we have, in some ways, kind of a societal obligation to feel good, like we have a responsibility to feel good, and it is in that feeling good, that true feeling good, let's be clear, because there's a lot of things that make you feel good temporarily but are not actually beneficial or helpful in any way. So it's that true kind of feeling good, that regulated nervous system, that inner peace that we're reaching towards. And so we have to kind of find that, and meditation is a fantastic practice in learning what that feels like and training your nervous system to kind of come down from the chaos and commotion of life and the trauma responses and the hyperactivity that is usually present for most people, because we're not doing this work necessarily. This is still very new that people are like actively talking about regulating and training our nervous system. And once you do that, stillness practices being one of the most powerful ways I've found to do this and to regulate myself, so that when I'm in real life, I'm not actually pinging to the things that hyperextend me energetically, but rather I'm attracted to the things that bring that sense of peace. Because the truth is, when you're moving more from that kind of like hyper energetic nervous system state, which many people are, I certainly was for a part of my life, then you're attracting in and almost like subconsciously seeking out things that are going to kind of keep you in that hyper aware state. So the work then is first to just even kind of unravel yourself from being in that space, like that kind of fight or flight mode, finding what it really feels like to know the peace that's always there, right? We always have the opportunity for inner peace, for inner stillness, for inner beingness, for that really just feel good ecstasy of just being alive and being fully present in the moment. And then once you have that, then you use that to kind of attune yourself to the things in life that are actually right for you. And so the question then is not like, does my mind think like this is the right thing? It's, does this feel like the right thing? Does this intuitively and energetically bring me back to that home, peaceful, based, sovereign, free state? So there's work, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of layers to this practice, and this will be a much bigger conversation than what I'm going to give in this video. But I wanted us to just kind of open this conversation, and I wanted to invite you into this work a little bit, because I think it's really important that we shift from this kind of over intellectualized society where we do everything from our minds and we're sort of attached to our, internalized identities and how we think and our belief systems. And we drop down from that into just the true beingness of self and learning how that feels, and then learning how to navigate from that space, which is more authentically who you are than just being in your mind all the time. As many of you know, I'm a meditation teacher. I'm a huge proponent of meditation. I really, really believe that meditation could save the world, change the world overnight if everybody really committed. And of course, there are different forms, but to me, the sitting in stillness with yourself form has been the most potent and powerful, because it really requires you to just be fully with yourself. And as you do, you start to unlearn and unlayer the things that are not you, and you start to really remember what it really feels like to be who you are. And once you find that space, then you can do these practices, as I'm saying, in real time and in real life, when you go out into the world and you navigate from the space of who you really are, and not the trauma or the layers of not self. So, I really encourage you to kind of take this on and be with it. Another example that's present for me that I'll give around this is, to me, when you're looking for answers, and for many people who are, say, in the metaphysical space, when they look for answers, they might go to their astrologer or their tarot card reader, or, anybody who's sort of in the metaphysical space in that capacity. And what happens is you go and you seek answers in whatever, it might even be your therapist, if that's your jam, whoever you go to for answers. It might even be your mom. I mean, for me, it was definitely my mom. She was all of the above. Whoever you go to for answers, the truth of the matter is, what they're going to tell you is their answer based on their context and the intuitive measures that they have working in accordance and in relationship to yours. But ultimately, whether what they've said is the answer for you. How do you know? Exactly what I'm describing, right? So you could go to someone and they could literally tell you the opposite of what is true for you or the right thing to do for you. And I'm sure we've all done this. We go to a friend and they're like, oh yeah, you should absolutely do this. And immediately you're like, yeah, it's a no for me. you know for sure, just in having heard them say that, that's actually not it. So all we're doing ever when seeking answers and whomever we go to for this is looking to confirm what we already know. Someone can really only ultimately confirm what you already know is right for you. Now, they can confirm what's wrong for you, and you could decide to go that route, right? Because that's where discernment comes in. That's where self-mastery comes in, is like being willing and able to see and move according to what's actually best for you, and not what like the ego wants or the personality wants or whatever else, however other ways we move in the world. But this is the practice, right? It's the practice of aligning with that very inner state of being that is the truest version of who you are, that home frequency. And then from there, moving according to that and listening to the pings and the nudges of our nervous system, our inner being, beyond what the mind is saying, beyond what's logical or rational, and following, intuitively, more intuitively, but in practice, where life is guiding you, which is always going to be then back to yourself, right? This is the return back to that home frequency, that home state. So that way, then when you make decisions in life, you're lining up the people and the experiences and the environments and the things that are going to maintain your home frequency versus meet you at that kind of fight or flight state where you're not totally in your body and you're not even like fully connected to yourself. The last thing I'll say about this is there's a Buddhist quote around this that I think really kind of perfectly exemplifies what I'm trying to say. They say, when you meet the one, it's not going to be the person that like gives you butterflies and makes you weak in the knees and, makes you sort of energetically amplified. They say when you meet someone like that, it's more usually like karmic, or there's a lesson for you here, or maybe they're helping you see something about yourself, or what kind of space you're attracting people in from. They say when you meet the person who makes you feel like home and like at ease in your body, it makes you feel like yourself, like you're not in a rush or in a hurry, like you're just able to be present. They bring you back to that home frequency. That's when, you're onto something. And when you meet, and this could be friendship, this could be romantic, this could be anything, right? That we want to align with the people who are going to bring out the home frequency, not the hyper extended, overly energetic version of us. We want to really learn how to maintain that. So I hope I've given you some practices today. I really encourage you to feel into this, as always with all of my work and everything that I have to say. If it doesn't land with you, maybe I've been the one to point you in the opposite direction. Like I have no attachment to how you take this on, how you relate to it. I'm just here to give my own version, what I use as tools to navigate my own life and my sort of continued commitment to self-mastery. So I hope this has been helpful. I really encourage you to commit to nervous system regulation, to your inner being, to that home frequency, figuring out, fine-tuning, mastering what that feels like and what that looks like in real time. All of these need to be practically applied. It's one thing to sit and meditate and find it and feel so good. And then you go out in life. And if you're not able to maintain it, then there's going to be a disconnect. So we want to sort of find in meditation, the home frequency, that very feel good ecstasy and joy of just being alive, and then commit to maintaining that in chaos, in commotion, when life gets hard and when it's easy and when it's good, and, like in the whole spectrum of being alive. So that way you feel like you're showing up as your actual self, that you are revealing and becoming more and more of who you really are as life serves you with the opportunities and the lessons and the experiences to do so. I love you guys. Thank you for being here with me. See you next time.